さ振り上げた握り拳が俺たちのジャッジメント
普通なら本職の人にこんな安い額の取り立て頼めないからね。
でも
同年代のガキどもが万札ちらつかせてタクシー乗る時代に本職の君が金もないんじゃ様になんねえだろ。
Have you ever felt out of place out there? As though people around you didn't seem to hold the same values you did.
俺も長いことこの街で金貸しやってるからよくわかる。今の世の中金の本当の価値が分かってるやつなんてほとんどいやしない。
You walk down the street and feel like you stick out. A black hole in an ocean of color where everything bends around and avoids you altogether.
なんだてめえ言ってんぜ。おいちょっと待てよこれ。
There's no resentment here. You're not spiteful because you see things differently. You just feel there's something more you could be doing.
俺たちはずっとあんたの背中を見て育ったんだ。いい車乗って肩で風切って周りの人間に頭下げられてそういう人間になりてえって俺たちがそう思っちゃいけねえのかよ。
You've been dealt different cards. You've had different experiences. You have different options.
施設上がりの人間は夢を見ることも許されねえってんだ。
So you play the part you're given. You do it so well the world asks for more, demands for more. Suddenly, you're a prisoner to the whims of your environment, caged inside a way of life you feel forced to lead. But even though the path you're walking is covered in the shadows made by fluorescent bulbs and smiling faces, you still find yourself in the light now and again.
久々にオールで付き合えよな。
You take pride in being able to hold your own against the pressures trying to undermine your convictions.
しゃあないの。ああ一丁景気のやれや。そこまでお客様がお望みならこの真島僭越ながらお相手いたしましょう。ただし私からは一切手出しはいたしません。何しろお客様は神様ですから。
As we've seen across Questrospective, Yakuza, otherwise known as Ryu Ga Gotoku, has grown and evolved beyond its amorphous beginnings as an entirely novel concept into a colossal flagship series for Sega. Ryu Ga Gotoku was a constantly dismissed project. Nagoshi eventually snuck a demo reel for it into a company-wide meeting with the president of Sega Sammy Holdings. Despite being berated by upper management for doing so, the president was into the concept, and the greenlit project was almost cancelled 3 times. Once for each presentation Nagoshi held asking for more money to begin working on it. At its core, Ryu Ga Gotoku has always gone against the grain, against being normal, against expectations. Even the name of the series, Ryu Ga Gotoku, was against traditional Japanese grammar at the time, but Nagoshi insisted on the name because of how it looked when spelled out. He thought it was super cool. Company executives and staff were skeptical of a game with mature themes doing well under the Sega branding. Up until then, Sega was devoted to flashy aesthetics and eye-catching, colorful excitement. Development for Ryu Ga Gotoku was completely filtered through Nagoshi, whose idea, being so specific and unfamiliar to the rest of the staff, had to approve anything and everything being put into Ryu Ga Gotoku. As a result, the ideas of what was and wasn't Ryu Ga Gotoku were learned by the staff directly from Nagoshi's own perspective. it had an interesting effect on the people working under him. This production process was unique in the industry at the time and sort of flattened the hierarchy of positions. Because everything was funneling through Nagoshi, staff on Ryu Ga Gotoku became quite familiar with one another. Masayoshi Yokoyama, writer and producer for the series, is said to be so blunt and direct with his work, he'll perform mocap scenes himself to show off exactly what he wants in a shot and, with disregard to their status as celebrities, address actors in the voice booth as though they were upstarts in a play. The staff works under excruciatingly fast development times, a condition set upon Nagoshi by Sega's president at the time of Ryu Ga Gotoku 2's development and has characterized the series' development since. One where results need to be achieved quickly and goals are accomplished through brutal honesty. Nagoshi is on record as saying he doesn't aim for perfection with Ryu Ga Gotoku. He knows it's impossible for the series to be refined under the conditions they are made in, and he likes the roughness around its edges. Overall, it seems Ryu Ga Gotoku Studios houses individuals who embody what Ryu Ga Gotoku is. People who enjoy their work despite the stressful conditions. People who understand what Ryu Ga Gotoku is supposed to be and work across departments and corporate hierarchies to make it. Who are Ryu Ga Gotoku? Yakuza 0 marked the 10-year anniversary of the series, which naturally became a point of retrospection for the creatives who had built their entire careers off it. A look back on how far they'd come and how drastic of a shift the series has had since escalating in popularity. It provided an opportunity to speak on those origins. It also gave them insight into how far from the original concept Ryu Ga Gotoku had strayed from, and whether or not this was a good thing. Nagoshi saw Yakuza 0 as an opportunity for a reset, a way to balance out past and present, return to roots with the wisdom and innovation an entire decade can provide. He wanted to reflect this in the game's characters, story, and setting. Ryu Ga Gotoku 0 takes place in 1988, during the economic bubble in Japan. At the time, Kabuki-cho was the den of debauchery it was renowned for. See, in the aughts, there were numerous campaigns led by civilians and city officials to clean up Kamurocho's real-life counterpart. And by clean up, I mean as clean as one of the most famous red light districts in the world could get. By 2005, Kabuki-cho, and by extension Kamurocho, had started to look a little more respectable while still maintaining its reputation as a place full of every pleasure business you could think of under the sun. Similar to Las Vegas, the Kamurocho of Ryu Ga Gotoku was more of a tourist trap and less of a tourist's final resting place. But the 80s were its golden age. It was full of tremendous amounts of criminal activity and danger, serving as a central hub for Japan's nightlife. Discos, arcades, hostess clubs, gambling, massage parlors, sex work. It was all there and spilling out into the streets. Literally. During an economic boom in a place where anyone can indulge in more or less whatever they want for the right price, where criminal activity is at its peak, only one thing matters: money. It always comes back to money. And in Ryu Ga Gotoku 0, money is our best friend and our ultimate rival. This is not a Tim Rogers bit, I promise there's a point I'm making here. I suppose that would make it a Tim Rogers bit then. I don't have a second camera to perform this joke. Harsh, violent, and cold. Kiryu idolizes the Yakuza, embodying their ruthlessness and donning a black suit and gold chain. Threatening, intimidating. Not the sea urchin of my heart. He creates a startling contrast to the colorful outfits the youths around him are wearing. Exercises in excess and glamorous lifestyles are juxtaposed to dirty bathrooms, garbage littering the streets, and violence happening just off to the side, where the shadows casted by Kamurocho's glory await to devour any poor soul foolish enough to stray from the main streets. Goro Majima is wearing a shirt. He is using his inside voice. This is wrong. His hair is restrained, his clothing is proper, and his mannerisms are calculated. On stage, he is everyone's favorite jester, but when alone, the mask comes off, and we see exhaustion. We see an actor caught in a never-ending performance, constantly supervised, ensuring they never let their walls down. Both of these men are far cries from the god characters we recognize them as, but deep down hold fast to similar convictions. They're unrefined versions of their future selves, placed in situations designed to challenge and destroy their fledgling ideals. Their journeys will test their resolve, the dilemmas they face will strip away the illusions they've casted upon themselves, and the world they live in will do whatever it can to keep them under its heel. And they'll need money. Lots of it. It always comes back to money.
この金でどうだ。いらっしゃいませ、お客様。制圧完了。
Money is your sole resource in Ryu Ga Gotoku 0. It's used to make progress in its side quests, as experience points to purchase new abilities for either character, and to purchase healing items and weapons, both of which you'll need in vast amounts. In a world both mechanically and narratively revolving around capital, money is a direct measurement of your own self-worth. Bills will spring forth out of enemies when they're hit, and the end of every fight brings with it a summary of the amount of money you earned, along with special bonuses for meeting a variety of criteria. Fights in Ryu Ga Gotoku 0 place the monetary value of your talent front and center, making it difficult to ignore the accolades you're dished out for performing to an invisible audience. Helping random civilians being accosted in the streets will often yield high-value items you can sell for instant cash injections, and long-running side quests will yield a larger income the more you acclimate yourself to them. Over time, as you help others with their problems and commit harder to long-term efforts, you begin to associate your intentions to their monetary value. Kindness, perseverance, and consistency are rewarded. The flow of money is validation in Ryu Ga Gotoku 0. In the eyes of those playing, money is success and status. It's a sign we're doing something right, and its stagnation is akin to the loss thereof. The same side quests which line your pockets ask for exponential reinvestment. Over time, they'll drain your funds faster than they can reimburse you. Ability costs begin to rise dramatically as you level them up, slowing your personal growth. Methods to stay on top of your cash flow as costs rise and progress slows down involve gambling on almost totally random odds and risking everything you have on succeeding against difficult scenarios, like Mr. Shakedown, a massive 10-foot-tall roaming powerhouse requiring perfect execution of fighting talent, or a constant financial maintenance of weapons and healing items to defeat. Win, and you'll take him for everything he's worth. Lose, and you will lose, and he'll take every last yen from you instead. As you advance further into Ryu Ga Gotoku 0, the stakes grow higher, and you just as easily lose the 500 million yen you won betting on English teachers wrestling flight attendants to an overgrown man with a baby's face in a fedora. Or worse, spend it in the wrong place. And I don't mean in Mahjong. I don't lose when I play Mahjong, and therefore I don't spend money on Mahjong. I don't mean at the Sega arcade, where Outrun and Space Harrier filled me with wonderful memories of old arcades, before Fantasy Zone absolutely ruined my nostalgia and sent me into a frothing tirade about old video games being bad. I don't mean spending it all on Pocket Circuit racing car parts either, which I did and regret nothing for doing so. My car goes the fastest. It's the coolest, fastest, bestest car on the circuit. I call it the Dream Crusher, because it makes children cry. Finally, revenge on all of my bullies, 20 years in the making. And I don't mean spending unnecessary amounts on Maharaja's cover charge in order to master Zero's new rhythm game, which actually maps button presses to the rhythm and not the melody, a misunderstanding with rhythm game note charts that has confused me for years. Why are they called rhythm games? Why aren't they called melody games? It would just make more sense. Clearly, it's not the rhythm we're hitting notes for, we're hitting notes for. Without realizing it, we succumb to the temptations of the world around us, We're forced to play its game to push forward, and the fine line we tread between completely losing ourselves to the hustle and grind and staying true to our values becomes narrower the longer we trapeze across it.
いい飯腹いっぱい食っていい女を好きなだけ抱ける。それだけじゃない。金さえあれば不幸な人間を幸せにすることすらできる。
As the pressures of Ryu Ga Gotoku's game world begin to intensify, our focus on making money begins to overshadow our reasons for making it. We start trying to protect our money, we invest in ways to make more money, and stray from improving ourselves.
上等や。5億やろうが何やろうがなんぼでも稼いだろ。極道に戻るためやったら、俺は何でもやったるわ。
And suddenly, our certainty begins to dwindle. What happens when the values you live by become your own undoing?
栗原さんの死体はこのわずかに残る更地に倒れていたとのことです。
こいつ。
When the people you respect don't care about your integrity or what you believe in.
ちょっと待ってください。それじゃ風間のおやっさんはどうなるんです？それで俺も殺しはやっていません。
そういうことは殺に。
What do you do when the life you've been made to lead asks you to cross a line you're not ready to?
なんで俺がそんなようなこと？
言ったじゃねえか。極道に戻れるなら何でもやるってよ。違うのか？
You can do the right thing, hold true to your convictions, and risk losing everything you've committed yourself to in the process.
極道は一度身引いたらしまいだ。お前は仇として幸せになる道でも探すんだな。
どうすればいいんだ？じゃあ俺はどうすればいいんだ？
Or you can cross the line, do whatever it takes to get what you want, even if it means you'll never recognize your own reflection forever onward. Have you ever felt out of place out there? As though people around you didn't hold the same values you did.
正しいかどうかなんてどうでもいい。所詮俺は風間のおやっさんについていくために極道になっただけの半端もんです。俺の不始末でおやっさんに迷惑かけるくらいなら俺にも覚悟があります。
あいつを逃がしたってくれ。なんやと？あんたしか頼れんのや。はよいかんかい。
The feeling's a lot closer to home than you may realize.
殻の一つも
針の穴ほどの隙間もない繁華街に偶然できた一粒の空き地だ。それを親父が欲しがってる。親が欲しがるものを差し出す。それが子分の義務ってわけだ。
Challenge other players online in Mahjong, CeeLo, or poker? Whoa!
Oh no, we've lost.
I know what Mike and GC are gonna be.
Whoa!
You can't tell me that it's not. Get some
March.
milk.
Oh, that was
March
so
can't touch you
fast!
enough.
Whoa, I'm not f***ing bound by the PS4 anymore! Yeah! Get out of my way! Oh my god, I'm gonna save again just because it was so fast! Oh my god! Oh, I can just, oh my god! I'm gonna make like 5 saves! Holy sh!
The other button, I think.
Oh, touch the button. Where am I?
Zoom out.
What the f***?
What the f is a Millennium Tower, bitch? I'm gonna kill you.
It doesn't exist yet! It doesn't
Is the
exist
21st
yet!
Century Reconstruction Project.
Yeah.
Oh my god!
I'm so happy we worked collectively together, me and you, Hudson.
There's no Millennium Tower. Where?
Yes.
What rooftop does the game end on then?
Standing up for what you believe in has a nasty way of making an enemy out of anyone who likes things just the way they are. The way the world works is a misleading lie, and the people feeding it to you thrive on it.
親父、あのです。例の件ですが、やっぱり桐生は始末します。奴は立花をおりませんでした。堂島組に義理書いたけじめはきっちりつけさせます。
Everything you've believed in is crumbling down around you, and what you thought you were capable of doing is turning out to be a lot harder than it was supposed to be. The light at the end of the tunnel, in truth, is just another obstacle waiting to challenge you. Your endeavor to push back against what's expected of you means being stripped of your resolve. It means having your ideals turned against you. And it means having to face countless threats as you're slowly backed into a corner.
100人はくだらねえで堂島組のもんが銃持って待ち構えてる。さあどうする桐生。表に出て蜂の巣になるか。それとも俺と楽しい夢一緒に追いかけるか。
And to be honest, it's terrifying. It's borderline self-destructive to be faced with challenge after challenge like this. You put on a strong face, but inside, inside you're hurting. Inside you're scared.
なんでこうなっちまったんだろうな。どっから歯車がずれた。ほらな。桐生。兄弟として。おめえにそんな死に方させられねえよ。
How do you take on the world alone? How long can you keep running for?
あなたは誰なんですか？
あ、俺か。しょうもない男や。
And how many times can you fight for what's right before you're finally worn down to a false compromise?
死体があれば雇い主は納得する。せやからその写真の女には誠の身代わりに死体になってもらうんや。
なんやて。
Ryu Ga Gotoku Zero's focus, in comparison to 5's openly ambitious attempt to comprehensively address a single theme down to the smallest detail, was a satisfying return to form reminiscent of the series' beginnings. Balancing 4 or 5 characters in multiple locations was a challenge, but fleshing out 2 characters and 2 cities with the same attention to detail was a treat. Though the layouts of Sotenbori and Kamurocho were largely the same, save for a few extra alleys and well-placed shortcuts into other parts of town, their behavior is entirely different. The Yakuza and other thugs chasing you from street corners and alleyways are distractions to cover for the drunks and delinquents you might bump into when running away. When nearby, you might even hear their threats towards a random civilian and the civilian's pleas for help. A call to action difficult to ignore. Mr. Shakedown is always wandering the city. Always watching. Waiting. Stalking. Shakedowning. I'm reminded of the original Yakuza moving through Zero cities in the best way possible. In Yakuza 3, sub-story markers were added to the world map to make them easier to find. This was part of several quality of life changes to sub-stories, including being able to postpone one to save because you could fail them. Substories in Yakuza 1 were also missable, another issue resolved by modern Ryu Ga Gotoku. Yet, because of these conveniences, substories lost a certain believability. A candid storyline about a thief stealing your wallet isn't as compelling when you walk directly towards the spot on the map which triggers this supposedly spontaneous event. Ryu Ga Gotoku has always striven to update its sub-story design to be easier to digest, but a re-examination had been long overdue. Ironically, the change to sub-stories Ryu Ga Gotoku no longer needed was the first change Ryu Ga Gotoku ever made. There are no sub-story markers in Ryu Ga Gotoku 0. Sub-stories in Ryu Ga Gotoku 0 come to you instead. Well, not real. I mean, metaphorically speaking, I'm just trying to be a little artistic in this derivatively creative piece. Give me a break here. Sub-stories in Ryu Ga Gotoku 0 are more than about being in the right place at the right time. They are about reinforcing your presence in the world. Without map markers, you're paying more attention to your surroundings and are easily aware when something's out of place. As you're running an errand for a man who's trying to sell you on the future of portable phones, a crowd gathering around a statue draws you towards it. This acquaints you with a living statue street performer. On your way back from your errand, you come across the same street performer who needs your help distracting the crowd around him so he can make a hasty escape to the bathroom. And while you're nearby, might as well check in with the little girl who keeps hanging out at the Club Sega, hoping you'll win her more plushies from the crane machine. This recursion of characters and their awareness you exist makes you a part of the society you're traipsing about in. You go to a restaurant and the chef there asks if you enjoyed the food, tells you to come back whenever you'd like, gives you his name. You buy a few bottles of Tariner from the M store next to your favorite save point and do some small talk with a girl who's always working the register. You shake hands with the softcore video clerk and discuss your interests after laboriously masturbating inside the same booth for the 15th time. And he smiles, happy, excited one could say, to clean up after you. Again, the world of Ryu Ga Gotoku 0 is proactive. It actively seeks out the player in order to interact with them, to challenge them and engage them regardless of their intentions for being there. It demands a reaction. The modern changes to sub-stories help create an organic relationship with the people you meet. Without fail states, decisions you make in sub-stories are based on your own intuition and personal outlook. Instead of picking a right answer, you might aim for a funnier outcome or just your honest opinion. This is agency, it's fun, it's the reason Ryu Ga Gotoku 0 helped revive the series in the West, why we have mountains of Baka Mitai memes and screenshots of Kiryu naming a chicken he won in a special bowling challenge, Nugget. Becoming friends with Mr. Libido, tuning into your favorite radio show to see if the story you submitted about one of your wacky adventures made it on air, getting to know the people who work at the places you're a regular at. These are normal, believable things. And yet, they give way to incredibly strange situations. A snowball effect we can relate to with stories of our own about surreal moments we've found ourselves in thanks to a friend we've made or a place we visited. But really, what makes the sub-stories of Ryu Ga Gotoku 0 so successful has to do with Ryu Ga Gotoku 0's gameplay loop. It's perfect. It's a perfect loop, which is really bad for roller coasters, but really good for video games. Yeah, if you see a roller coaster with a perfectly circular loop, by the way, don't get on it. It's either old or dangerous or both. No es bueno. Muy peligroso.
I admit, this was a difficult video to write, so that's why you have to put up with all of these jokes.
Anyway, doing mini-games will reveal sub-stories and open up new storylines. These sub-stories will provide you with additional hostesses and employees for the Hostess Club and Real Estate Management side quests, respectively. Those side quests will make money for you to spend on items, abilities, and more mini-games which can unlock more sub-stories. All the while, challenges will seek to remove said money or force a decision from you. Exploration-related activities such as picking up telephone club cards and eating at restaurants can earn completion points, which you can use at Bob Utsumiya's Happy Fun Time Miracle Shrine to increase the length of your sprint, the amount of money enemies can drop, bonuses to side quest functions like making collection time shorter, or how often Mr. Shakedown takes naps around the city. Literally doing anything in Ryu Ga Gotoku 0 will pay off in some way, at some point, in some part. Some part. Ryu Ga Gotoku 0 is more than a sum of its parts. Each piece contributes to an overall experience, making up its identity in the same way we, as people, are more than a sum of parts. We are more than just our occupations and interests, and Ryu Ga Gotoku has always led us to believe this is the case. It largely centers around individuals who, despite having kind hearts and an indomitable urge to be good to others, are leading lives in criminal undergrounds and constantly at odds with their ideologies. It explains how good people can find themselves doing bad things, how poor circumstances can naturally draw you towards one such way of life, how society often puts people into inescapable stations and expresses disgust when people try to rise above those stations. Shattered convictions present a chance to rebuild them.
俺は国道を張り続けなかった半端もんだ。風間のおやっさんはきっとそれを見抜いてたから俺が国道になることを許さなかった。
Rediscovering yourself means having to confront your past and having to ask yourself if you're still willing to do what you've committed to.
話やしまいや。俺はお前の計画には乗らん。
And you know what? Sometimes you have to admit your weaknesses.
俺はおめえが一緒じゃなきゃ何やっても半端で意味がねえんだよ。
俺だって同じさ。お互いまだガキだってことだ。
You might have been hasty. You might have been naive. You need to acknowledge you might not have been ready for the responsibility or the pressure.
極道がどうとか言う前に結局俺は半端なガキでしかねえ。
俺だって人思いに死なせてやるなんて言い切ったくせにマジでダセえよ。
But the thing about convictions is they need to get knocked around every now and then to get stronger. They need to be challenged so they can adapt to the obstacles in your path.
本物の極道ってのは多分あんたみたいな男なんだろう。それでも俺は半端もんなりの意地最後まで貫かせてもらう。あんたが何度俺の前に立ちふさがろうがな。
Convictions can change with time. They can sharpen into piercing resolve, tempered by your struggle.
いつか誠んとこにお前以外の殺し屋が来る。それより前にお前もやられるで。なんでそれがわからんねや。
それやったらそれで俺が向かってくるもん一人残らずぶっ殺したらわ。
It's scary. It's frightening. But it's a part of fighting for what you believe in. Part of remaining true to who you are, both for resetting and adjusting your beliefs and reminding yourself how they might be affecting others.
一度黒に染まったもんはどこまで行っても黒や。そっから抜けることはできん。けどな、それでも噛みつく相手選ぶくらいはできる。それが俺の流儀や。
おい、やめろや。
We come out of our ordeals wiser than before, and knowing we will always be confronted with new challenges gives us a new perspective to stand against them.
あんたが楽しいかどうかで物事を決めるのと同じ。俺は好きか嫌いかで決めるだけだ。あんたと組むのが死ぬほど嫌だってことだ。
キリュってね。
なら撃たれる方がまだマシだ。
We are not trudging forward through a tunnel with no light at its end. We are rising, ever rising, basked in the light of the sun. But unfortunately, not without our fair share of suffering.
よく味わって据えよ、兄弟。
Sumo!
何かの間違いだろ。
What's the matter with you? That's a terrible part. That was bad.
You wish you had this cake.
Gays are watching. If you don't, you're homophobic.
You can't do that to me. You can't do that to me.
You know it's what
You cannot do that to me. You cannot put me in that corner. Now I won't allow it. I'm an adult. How dare you? Yeah, all right. I'll pick it.
そもそもな、真島。わしがお前に牧村誠を殺せ言うたんは。お前には殺せんと踏んどったからや。目に浮かぶで。殺しの命令を受けたお前は、女殺せんと、どっかにかくまったんやろ。わしの狙い通りにな。
Feeling out of place and having your confidence broken, putting yourself back together again as the world pushes you against a line in the sand you refuse to cross.
蒼天堀はお前の庭じゃねえんだよ。檻なんだよ、檻。
It's all about power. It's all about money. It always comes back to money.
からの一坪は俺のこの手で差し出しますよ。親父。
Money is status. Money is the system. Money is power.
そこにいる男は体力で一番金がかかる殺し屋だ。そいつに仕事を受けさせるルートと金がある限り、俺は誰だろうが好きにやれる。
Pretty words about resolve and perseverance mean nothing under a structure designed to put a price on people.
5億あります。これを桐生さんの命の代金としてお納めください。
You want the reality? In a world where money is king, everyone is an asset. Every person is a chess piece in a game being played by the wealthy. And the idea someone can work hard, make enough money to go from being the piece to the player is a sham.
今月の売り上げ、この調子なら来月にはノルマの1億。
ダメだ。あと5億稼げ。そうしたら口聞いてやるよ。
If money is necessary for success, you've already failed. There's your reality. The truth we're constantly at odds with. We are dehumanized down to the value of our pockets and implied price tags until we're nothing but game pieces for someone else.
他人の血をてめえの道具に使うのは極道の坂だ。だから俺もお前の血を看板に使わせてもらう。
In this world, we can be defeated. Shaved down.
肩ぶつけたろうが謝れっつんだよ。
どうでもええ。は？好きにせえや。
Pushed to the ground until we no longer value ourselves.
ええやろピエロで。上等や。
And the harder against the grain we push, the more we're expected to suffer.
指と合わせて残りたったの8本。全部潰れるまでに私の口割れますか？
Right and wrong have no meaning here. The people in power don't operate on fairness and justice. They want to exploit you and destroy you. You and I need to have a conversation. Ryu Ga Gotoku has an issue with the way it represents women. To be clear, I'm not talking about how it represents the way women are viewed in its setting. When Ryu Ga Gotoku 0, set in the 80s in one of the filthiest red light districts of its time, aims for authenticity by including stories about sex clubs and sex workers, and has instances of women being accosted in the streets. When it has softcore pornography you can collect, albeit to ultimately subvert your expectations and make you feel like a loser for watching it. When it includes telephone club, light gun shooter minigames and teases you with sexy images or uses sex as comedy, like when training a dominatrix in the middle of broad daylight on how to be more of a sadist, I don't bat an eye. I don't bat an eye because this is an authentic representation of this place during this time period. It was awful towards women, dominated by sexual pretense and raunchy, kinky ideas, and it shouldn't shy from representing it accurately. However, Ryu Ga Gotoku 0 seems to be using its setting as an excuse to be spiteful. Every woman is portrayed by one of three attributes: a lack of intelligence, a lack of compassion, or an extreme case of naivety. Substories about precarious situations Ryu Ga Gotoku typically addresses overall well, end with our characters blaming the victims for ending up in the situation they find themselves in. Even in situations when a woman is not in danger or the opportunity to be even unintentionally misogynistic isn't presenting itself, women are often berated for saying anything, or in other cases flat out treated like garbage, often such treatment being the focal point of the story. Here's a sub-story where a woman lacks the common sense to finish a simple crossword puzzle and is yelled at by the man trying to cleverly propose to her. Here's a restaurant intern being berated by her head chef for being incompetent, and even when she's proven herself, gets no apology and suffers more ridicule. Here's a teenage girl selling used panties as a side hustle, which is already really skeevy because a minor is being involved, getting assaulted by a stalker and then being blamed for her stalker's actions. There's an entire string of sub-stories where the punchline is some women are not conventionally attractive, or are heavyset, or are not in their 20s? Then there's the sub-story where a foreign woman who is implied to have been sexually assaulted, extorted, and trafficked by a man holding her passport and visa hostage marries said man after he confesses his love to her, and this is framed as a wacky and fun hijinks ending. And I don't want to discredit the work being put into Ryu Ga Gotoku's narrative, but Yokoyama's take on these sub-stories doesn't speak to his innocence in the matter. Even the main scenario kills a random woman for no reason other than to intimidate another character, or attempts to redeem a human trafficker even knowing their actions have directly caused an incredible amount of harm to one of the story's central characters. It then follows through by making said victim lose control following the death of another character and put herself into a situation no other human being would have reasonably done, even under emotional duress. All of this to give one of our main characters strong enough motivation to undergo a drastic change, a condition which could have been achieved without assassinating a character the narrative had done such a great job building from the get-go. And by character assassination, I'm not talking about a literal death. I'm talking about a character suddenly doing something completely out of character for the sake of the narrative, even if it makes no sense for them to be doing it. This goes beyond the use of sexual content. It scurries well beyond the shadow of the benefit of the doubt anyone can cast and makes Ryu Ga Gotoku 0 overwhelmingly insulting. It highlights an issue the series has had for a long time by being unapologetic about it. It's unfortunate a series which does discuss toxic male stereotypes as successfully as it tends to do still finds the time to be this misogynistic. The conversation we need to have about Ryu Ga Gotoku's mistreatment of women is a long one, much longer than the time I'm allowing myself here can allow, but it's a conversation we absolutely will be having. No, seriously, like I wrote out 7 pages, I had to move over to a new document because it's enough to be its own video, and it's going to be. Look forward to it, please look forward to it. I can't function without the approval of strangers. Segue. With a smaller playable cast, it isn't a surprise that Ryu Ga Gotoku 0 would find a way to deliver the variety of fighting styles players have become accustomed to using. Yakuza 4, 5, and even Dead Souls had ingrained into fans an expectation they were going to be utilizing a vast array of martial arts, and a return to basics, even with 2 characters, would have been a dramatic reduction. Fighting would have grown stale. We'd be bored compared to what we've been accustomed to. In Ryu Ga Gotoku 0's case, less turns out to be more. Kiryu and Majima can possess 3 unique fighting stances with their own sense of weight, move lists, and heat moves, but the crux of Zero's fighting system is these styles are swappable mid-fight. Switching between styles is seamless. It caters to different playstyles and provides a lot of utility solutions to answer multiple problems you encounter when fighting. There's a graceful sense of momentum in longer fights, where switching back and forth between styles creates a flow you use to pull opponents in and completely dominate them. You may be one person, but it feels like you're tagging in 3 different fighters to take care of business. The essence of multiple characters are condensed into 2, and their fighting styles are the colors players use to paint the canvas. Weapons are the paintbrushes. In Ryu Ga Gotoku 0, weapons are given brand new relevance once again, as the series continues to find ways to convince players to actually use them. Some abilities affect weapons while in certain styles. Enemies carry weapons more often, which makes it easier to familiarize yourself with using them, and Ryu Ga Gotoku 0 will aggressively throw weapons at you by making them prizes in dream machines. There's also a minigame centered around outsourcing their procurement to prevent the hesitation of saving them for special occasions. Weapons are an equalizer for awkward situations you couldn't pull yourself out of, but they are also equally equalizing the adequacy of your enemy's ability to acquaint you with the ground. I'm not entirely sure about this, but in Ryu Ga Gotoku 0 specifically, using weapons leaves you more vulnerable to enemy attacks from behind, and enemies in general are much more confident taking potshots or wildly flailing their knives at you. It's an extra bit of awareness Zero expects you to have, and adds to the rough and tumble brawls the series has always been about. There's also legend styles you can unlock, but they're a little flat. They're the paint water of the painting process. You forget it's there and sometimes accidentally drink it. They taste bad too. Not as extensive or versatile as the rest of the fighting styles you've been using for most of Ryu Ga Gotoku 0, and you can't swap between it and the other 3 styles without pausing to do so. This breaks the nice pace created by the non-legend styles. There isn't much else to write home about in regards to Ryu Ga Gotoku 0's fighting elements. It's simply a solid continuity from Yakuza 5's, with sensible additions and a continued emphasis on giving players as much room to create wonderful pieces of violence as possible. In the context of Ryu Ga Gotoku 0's world, it's remarkably simple. Between navigating the mystery drama vehicle about several people finding their place in an uncaring world and micromanaging the ebb and flow of your financials, beating down would-be extortionists and petty criminals is like taking a break from work. Dealing with the politics of the Yakuza, the real estate moguls, and strategists behind events at play only creates more questions to mull over in your mind. But when fighting, you're a wrecking ball swinging into every brick wall short-sighted enough to get in your way. It's so easy, it feels right. You know exactly how to deal with the problem. You look forward to putting it into action, and you're excited in those 30 seconds of raw execution of the plan. And as soon as it's getting good, it's over. There's no one left to punch in the face or totally, absolutely not murder at all, not once, ever, never, ever, never. This fleeting sensation you grasp out to is a whisper teasing you with revelation if only you could hear it, as you're thrust back into the world of money and drama, trying to hold on to whatever semblance of identity you have left. You continue to ask yourself what it's saying. You fight, you hear it, you feel it. Something good, something invigorating. This feeling you're experiencing, getting pushed into the mud and getting back up, this certainty brought forth from landing a solid blow or performing the perfect counter, this confidence you only experience letting yourself loose on the world keeping you down. It's control. Here's more reality.
俺らにできるのは立ち止まって泣くか一歩でも前に進むかの2つだけだあんたはどっちでも好きな方を選んでいい
In this world, there are things completely out of our control, but it's so easy to lose sight of what's being taken from us day in, day out when we treat every power at play as this unchanging fact we just have to deal with. If we worship ideas of power, we will inevitably be subjugated by them.
辛抱を重ねりゃこういうボーナスが出てくるってのよ
Its rules by design are meant to keep us in perpetual check, to leave us open to exploitation and arrested development.
長いことご苦労やってるとよ正直てめえの立ち位置が見えてきちまう
Any structure of power, whether it's money or the Yakuza or a business, needs to be retaliated against when it begins to feed off the people it pretends to serve.
登場改善部を敵に回す気か牧村誠に指一本でも触れてみろ俺が登場会を潰す
Any person with enough power exercising it in ways meant to force others to do their bidding, any mastermind at either end of the chessboard should be toppled when they step in the way of personal freedoms.
これ以上手出すんやったら島野の親父野郎が殺すで俺は
If you need heroes, look to the people around you trying to live their lives any way they can. You don't need to idolize them, this would defeat the purpose of the entire Ryu Ga Gotoku series, but there's still something you can learn.
俺かてそないバカ正直に生きてきたわけやないせやけどな俺の周りにはバカに生きてバカに死んでった男たちがおったそいつらのくだらん生き方が俺は男の最高の生き様やと気がついた
And in your quest to wrestle control back from tyrants and their machinations, don't forget the convictions which have kept you on your feet. Don't sacrifice them at any cost.
ダメだ桐生超えちゃならねえその一線超えちまったら
Never lose sight of what it is you're fighting for, of how your fight will change the lives of those around you, of how the power you gain in the process can, in turn, be used to keep someone else down.
自分のために人殺しになった者へ償う方法はこの世にないお前はあの娘に償いきれない貸しを作る気か
At the end of the day, we all want things to operate on the basis of right and wrong. But the world we live in isn't built on right and wrong. So the answer to your problem is going to be pretty different. Maybe it turns out you don't care about being right or wrong. Maybe you just want to be yourself. Maybe there's a lot of gray between the black and white you've been taught to believe in.
白も黒も気分じゃねえ今の俺はこれがいいんだ俺が決めたこれで始めたいんだ
Maybe right and wrong are terms people in power use to control you. Maybe the world is a lot more colorful than black and white.
俺は決めたんや何が正しくて何が悪いかわからんこの街で誰よりも楽しく誰よりも狂った生き方したるってな
Only two things make sense in the world we live in. You should live your life the way you want to, and stand firm against anything trying to hold you back.
今日はおやっさんに報告したいことがあって来ました多分おやっさんは俺の言うことに反対しますそれでも俺はそうか
You should let others live theirs and ensure they have the chance to. Hold fast to those two beliefs, and one day, in this world full of people who don't understand you, as you're walking down the street feeling as out of place as you did before, there's going to be someone looking right at you. Someone who knows the way you feel, who's had to fight the world off too, and they'll be happy to see you.
Yo. Kiryu-chan!
Hey everybody, it's GC, you know, the guy in the video you just watched, and I wanted to talk to you all about something really important. Recently, the channel's come under a lot of growth in the past couple of months. I think we hit 10,000 subs in January or February or something like that, and then thanks to Rasputin, which, by the way, thanks Raz, we hit 15,000 subscribers not too long after that. I've been the sole producer, writer, director, editor, and whatever else you want to say, camera guy for GC Positive and Questrospective for the last 7 years since I started. And with the growth and the time I've spent making these things and the ways that I want to sort of branch out or spread my creativity out, I've decided now would be a good time as any to start a Patreon. Let's just get this out of the way. Absolutely nothing is changing for the channel or my content creation. Questrospective videos are still going to come out. GC Positive videos are still going to come out. If I have a new idea, I'm not going to paywall it behind a Patreon subscription. Really, I've started the Patreon as sort of like a tip jar. If you want to throw me a couple extra dollars my way, if you want to help support the channel, and if you want to support me. I have various reasons for making the Patreon, but the biggest one is probably that I spend a lot of time working on these videos. Just the opening for the Yakuza 0 video alone took me a whole day to film. I had to take apart my living room, set up everything I needed to, get into an outfit, record the music number in that outfit, put up a green screen, do it again, change into a different outfit, take down the green screen, record in the outfit, put the green screen back up, record in the outfit again, take that off, do it again for another one. And then I had to put the living room back together so that my roommates wouldn't get mad at me. And then I had to set up everything all over again in my room to do the live action bits. I think I was up from 2 p.m. to 8 a.m. working on it, getting all of that done, and I basically didn't stop. If you think about it, I basically had an 18-hour work shift without stopping. 18 hours is a little extreme for a work day for a video. I mean, usually it's anywhere from 6 to 12, which is still a lot. Like 12 is still a lot. I've been trying to hold myself to 8 so I don't burn out. But the point I'm making is the videos take a lot of time to do. And while I'd love to spend 6 to 12 hours every day working on videos, the reality is I really can't. I'm gonna be short with you. I got bills to pay. I'm still in school. It's really hard for me to dedicate time to making these videos, and if you've noticed the increase in productivity, it's because of the pandemic, and there really isn't a lot else to do right now. As of right now, I don't make a livable income off of content creation. This camera that I'm recording on, this microphone, these lights, all the outfits you've seen me wear, all of that comes out of my own pocket, out of whatever paycheck that I'm getting from whatever job I'm working at. Usually I'm a bartender or a waiter. Part of the reason the Patreon is going up is because I want to sort of make this transition towards doing content creation for a living. It's always been my passion to entertain somebody, whether it's making them laugh, making something they enjoy, being up on stage and being a goofball. I like entertaining. I feel like I'm an entertainer, and this is the one outlet I have to do that. And I would love to do this, for lack of a better word, professionally. Like I said, there's no pressure to become a patron. The Patreon itself is sort of a tip jar, and I'd like to keep it in that way, where if somebody wants to support me, they can, but it's not a requirement. That being said, there are a few perks to being a patron of the GC Positive channel, and I'm going to tell you those right now, as soon as I read them off the screen and cut to me doing that. At the $3 tier, you're considered my +1. You'll get access to videos 24 hours before everybody else, you'll get your name at the end of every video, and you'll get a monthly newsletter with my updates on what I'm working on for the channel, any video ideas I might have, and I might even run a few polls to see if anybody would be interested in some of the more prototype experimental stuff that I'm thinking of putting out. At the $6 tier, you get everything the $3 tier has, but you also get full access to my scripts via Google Docs, which means you'll be able to see me write my scripts live if you happen to be watching it at that specific time. You'll be able to tune back in every so often to see what I've changed, what I've added. You'll basically get live updates on what the episode is going to look like. You'll also get behind the scenes updates and previews. So let's say I put together an intermission sequence from the Yakuza videos, right? Where the TV static shows up and then it cuts to something and then it goes again with the TV static and then it cuts to something else. If I put that together, I'll be uploading those as patron exclusive previews for the episode before it comes out. Or let's say if while editing, I make a really silly edit that I probably won't include in the video, but I want somebody to see, I'll probably be posting those as patron exclusive as well. This doesn't mean you're going to stop seeing those silly edits on Twitter if you're not a patron. It just means you can get to see more of them if you are a $6 patron. And probably the biggest perk, whether you're a $3 or $6 patron, is access to my patron exclusive Discord. I've had a Discord before, and it was public, and it was a nightmare, and I've put a lot of thought into whether or not I've ever wanted to make another Discord again, and I've decided making a Patreon exclusive Discord just sort of relieves a lot of the headaches that revolve around public Discords. This is why I wanted to include this announcement inside the Yakuza video, as well as its own video, which will be coming out probably like a week before the next video I put out. And that's it. It's a very small patron, very non-invasive. I tried really hard not to make any big promises I wouldn't be able to meet in the future. And I also didn't want to do anything huge that would sort of make people who weren't patrons feel left out. And like I said, if you can't pledge, if you don't want to pledge, or if you're uncomfortable using Patreon as a platform, don't worry. I've been doing this for 7 years, motivated by people supporting me, whether it's through subscribing, watching my content, or leaving me comments or messages on Twitter letting me know, hey, what you make has helped me today, or made me feel better, or made me laugh, or what have you. Truly, the best way to support me, whether or not you are pledging to my Patreon, is subscribing and telling people about me and letting me know you're here. Regardless of my plans for the future, regardless of my desires for what I want to do, what's most important to me is that you feel included and that you feel like you're a part of a community that welcomes you. And that community will welcome you, and I will welcome you, whether or not you are a patron to my Patreon. If you do want to pledge, first of all, thank you so much. Second of all, you can find my Patreon at patreon.com/GCpositive. Every single dollar pledged will go towards paying my bills, procuring equipment for the show, and hiring an editor or a thumbnail person in the long run to help me speed up the process of my content creation. Thank you all for your support. Thank you so much for pledging if you do, and thank you very much for taking the time out of your day to watch this extra, probably 5-minute presentation on why I have a Patreon. This video and every video I make would not be possible without the encouragement I've received over the last decade, and I plan to continue making this content until it becomes impossible for me to do so. Anyways, once again, I'm GC. I hope you're all having a fantastic day. I hope you continue to enjoy my work, and I'm glad you're here. So long.